Hello, welcome to this edition of the Citizens Chat Show on Civic Space TV. I am Phillip Muliisa. Today, the Citizens Chat Show goes to Kololo Independence Grounds, and we are looking at what happened just this Tuesday. The president came out to meet traders with a background of them having instituted a strike over what they say is unfair taxes, double taxation, the institutionalization and enforcement of IFRIS as a mechanism to collect value-added tax from them, among other things. The president came out to talk to these traders, and we want to assess what came out from that interaction between the president and traders, their leaders, and everyone that attended that event at Kololo. Now, joining me on that conversation is a panel of distinguished citizens of this country, whom I will introduce, starting from the extreme left, from the National Resistance Movement, retired Major Awich Pollar. Major, good afternoon, and you're most welcome to the show.
Thank you, and greetings from the mighty NRM.
Thank you. Next to the Major is from the Uganda People's Congress, the Honorable Othieno Joseph.
Who
Honorable,
doesn't believe that NRM is mighty?
NRA is actually a balloon, a fighting thing, but they've managed to rule us for 38 years, thankfully with the might of the gun, not with the might of the ballot, the mandate of the people. So it's not mighty. But Comrade Awich is a fantastic guy. He seems very relaxed. He's just been coming from tours around the world, but when time comes for accountability, we shall hold him responsible.
Thank you, Honorable Othieno. And next to Honorable Othieno is from the Center for Constitutional Governance, Dr. Sarah Bireete. Doctor, good afternoon, and you're most welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, viewers. Glad to be back on the show.
Happy to have you. And last but not least is Dr. Ojambo Robert from Kyambogo University. Doctor, good afternoon, and you're most welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, on Tuesday, the president of this country was at Kololo talking to traders. Many people say the traders were disappointed. Others say that is what he had to do as the head of state. And others are not sure what should have been talked about. This panel today has to do justice really in assessing the response of the president to the traders. And I'll start with you, Dr. Sarah. The headline of a document from State House says, quoting the president, that we do not have many taxes in the country. I want us to start there. What did you pick from Kololo?
Well, if I may start from the very statement that we do not have many taxes in the country. Uganda ranks lowest in terms of tax percentages in East Africa, but also the 141 country out of 141 out of 171 countries ranked by the Heritage Foundation in terms of the tax burden. So Uganda's tax burden is at 11.4%. No, 11.8% for Uganda. Tanzania is at 11.7%, Kenya is at 17.4%, Rwanda is at 17.1%. The country with the highest tax burden is Denmark at 46.3%. So going by these basic figures, you can say Uganda does not have a high tax burden to make people, talk about the burden. But I think when you look at these percentages in isolation, without looking at household incomes and earnings of the people, then you miss the point. So for me, these figures should be analyzed together with borrowing rates of a country, because what is a revenue of a nation? Tax is just one of the elements that compose the revenues of the nation. You have borrowing, you have grants, So all that should be, because whatever we borrow still rests on a taxpayer to pay back. As of today, I think every Ugandan is indebted up to the tune of 2.5 million, including children born last night that will be counted in the census. So when you look at the debt burden versus a tax burden, because debt is also a burden of a taxpayer, I think these statistics then cease to make sense. So we need to have a holistic approach to that issue. But what were the demands of the traders that caused the meeting of the president at Kololo? One of the issues was that government should suspend the freeze system. Second one was that we should review the taxes, including import duty, which is 25% of whatever is imported. We have infrastructure levy at 1.5%. VAT on imports still remains the standard VAT on goods is at 18%. You have the withholding tax at 15%, and no wonder most of the containers always spend some days in the URA holding area. You have removal of foreigners or Chinese from shops to facilitate trade for locals. I think the traders here were also generous because we have these people as hawkers. Up to my village in Namgongo, you see hawkers, foreigners who are hawking items in our offices. So it's not just shops. They also wanted a reverse of ledger penalties and fines on assessment, a review of high interest on business financing, which is 18 to 36%. They are also demanding for a seat in parliament to have their own voice, because I think they feel they are not represented. And if you go under the Magna Carta principles, Magna Carta principles had two issues that relate to the tax debate. One of the principles was that no representation, no tax. Recently, when I was in Washington, I saw a protest. Washington is demanding for an independent Senate seat instead of being part of because the residents fall under two neighboring states, and Washington remains as an administrative unit with no representation in the Senate. So the residents have been agitating for a Senate seat, and so we found placards all over the place saying no representation, no tax, and this is a principle. Since 1215, when the Magna Carta laws, or the Great Charter for Freedoms, was enacted. The other element that is in this principle is the element that for whichever tax that you levy, then the stakeholders must be in agreement. By then, they had the royals and the barons, as people who must agree to the tax. So when you look at the agitation for fair taxation, depending on people's economies, depending on the cost of doing business, depending on the cost of getting income for business, because if banks can lend up to 36% interest. So what interest does a trader basically make out of their business? I think for me that's what I read out of Kololo and the demands of the traders as highlighted. So what was the response of the president? The president's approach, especially at the beginning of the speech, was to emphasize the point that traders are being punished for importing instead of trading locally. For me, that's the message that stood out. And he's like, why are you bringing these items? If you want to bring, even at some extent said, if you want to trade in fashion, then pay the tax. If you want to trade in, people who block our milk, who block our beef like Europe, then pay the tax. I thought that was a wrong approach. You have people that basically have no tax morale because of the conduct of government. The bloated size of government, the corruption, which the IGG has put at 10 trillion per year. So people don't see, of course, and the poor service delivery. 3 elements. Government wastes money with a bloated administrative structure that adds no value whatsoever to the life of a citizen. Then you have corruption. 1/5 of the budget is lost in corruption. Then poor service delivery. Look at our roads. Because what is the purpose of tax? When you say that Denmark, I know Denmark and Netherlands are ranked as among the people in this tax ranking by Heritage Foundation, countries where people pay the highest tax. But you also find that that's almost all that a citizen pays. They have good roads, they have free health care, they have education, quality education, they have goods at a lower basic cost. They have allowances for the unemployed. They have, most of the services, apart from the good public services, the other personal services are largely subsidized, but they also have allowances for the vulnerable members of society. So this argument does not make sense at all, in my view.
Thank you, Doctor. And really, to Dr. Bireete here, the argument of the president and the kind of picture painted that whoever imports is actually supposed to
taking
pay.
away, even called it breeding, that they are breeding the economy, they are taking away money.
Thank you for that. Dr. Ojambo, that's what Dr. Bireete read from Kololo. In your view, what, traders camped at Kololo from 8 in the morning and they left after dawn. What did they pick from Kololo in your view?
Yeah, for me, just to begin, it was an unfortunate situation for our country. Very unfortunate. I remember saying it last time here. It shouldn't be the president resolving tax issues. So the president is doing children's thing. It's like finding a parent is molding dolls for children to play. The president is supposed to be at a very strategic level of doing things. Should be negotiating these trade terms with the international organization. Should be spending more time chairing NAM and looking for better economic facilities for Ugandans and Africans or third world at large. Should be running a country, really, not dealing with the merchants of trade in the streets.
Market date collection.
But you see, these traders are very important in our economy. Just to give you a perspective, URA collects about, they range between 26 to 29 trillion, which goes into our budget. And therefore, when you look at these traders, they're almost producing 80% of it. That's why you see the metropolitan Kampala area is the one which collects 80% of the taxes in Uganda. And in my understanding, it is these traders, because these corporate organizations, pay as you earn and these other things, are very easy to collect, and they don't account to, because there are very few people who even pay as you earn in Uganda, because that is only for people who have formal employment. So much of the taxes are collected from trade, beginning from Malaba Obusia, that is the highest. Of course, these days we have a point in Mombasa, and then in town here when they are collecting VAT and these other things. So these are people who should have been taken serious. You needed a proper study on how you treat, you understand and answer their questions. What Sarah has read are very legitimate issues. And these traders, we may minimize them. They are really people who have done a very good research of the problems that affect them. And they brought them out in the simplest terms possible. But the government did not do a thorough research to answer. You could hear it from spontaneous URA officials who came on the podium to explain certain things. There's one who made me happy. He was explaining VAT basing on sugar bought from Kakira Sugar Works. And you should have seen that man, I think, did not sleep because the traders laughed at him. They really laughed at him because what he was saying was really economics of the classroom economics, which we did in Senior 5. But you're dealing with a trader who is dealing with this thing on a daily basis and using different mechanisms. So you need to be a little sophisticated, a little understanding of the situation. So, number one, the president handling traders directly in Kololo was not called for. But the beauty of it also has shown us that now President Museveni is at his end. He's really at his end. You know, we used to have a runner in the World Championship called Gabriel Selassie. Many of us thought that this man would never leave the scene. He broke all the records, and Ugandans and Kenyans were really desperate that will Gabriel Selassie really go. But one time he was running a marathon, and he ran for only 2 kilometers and got out, and people said, Gabriel Selassie, what has happened? So they asked him. He said there is always an end. I really saw Yoweri Kaguta approaching that end, because he was not the Museveni I knew. He was not the Museveni I knew. The Museveni I knew, by the time he calls a meeting like that, he has met the leaders, he has made his homework, and he's coming to do a stage manage.
Yeah,
in most cases, it is a stage managed thing just to... But this time,
so that is on top of
the man came and he was not prepared. And this is the most difficult time I have ever seen Yoweri Museveni in. The last time I saw Yoweri Museveni in a very difficult position was in 1997 when we were at the Freedom Square at Makerere University, and students were challenging him. He wanted to speak, and immediately he starts to speak, they start singing Salim Saleh. That's when Salim Saleh had a lot of scandals. The students were singing corruption, oh, Salim Saleh, and the president felt very bad. They started singing, speaking. So this is the second time I saw him in very difficult position, to almost cursing. I've never seen the Yoweri Museveni cursing people. Yeah. He was cursing people. When they were walking away from him, he was saying, okay, you walk away. God is seeing you. He said, hey, Yoweri Museveni. He said, okay, you refuse what I am telling you. For me, I'm 80 years. I am very soon going to go to heaven, and you will remain here suffering. He was in a very desperate situation. Why? He had not done very good homework. He had not done very homework, and he was dealing with the people who had done a lot of study in what they do. Chaired by that man, Johnny Kabanda, yes, the federation president. He had things at his fingertips. Number two, it really gives government is as if government is not there. So in Uganda, we don't have a government. The government equals to the president, because you have a minister of trade, you have a minister of finance and planning, you have a minister of Kampala, because that's where they do the business, majority of them. You have a minister of state for industry and what have you, that general now who is there. And you have so many of them. And for me, these are places where you have technical people. You have URA as an agency, where you have technical people. This group should have sat and studied the situation and looked at these, because these things had been given to the president. They were not presenting them for the first time. They had given a dossier. So that you see how you answer things technically. Because IFRIS to a common trader in Kampala is still a nightmare. And I really understand them. Even just before I came to this show, I was discussing with somebody about IFRIS, and we were arguing that IFRIS is a very good thing. There's no problem with IFRIS. But where are you implementing it? Something can be very good, but you can't implement it in a certain place. And I gave an example of implementing a piggery program in Butambala or Gomba. You want to promote piggery in Uganda. Your starting place cannot be Butambala, or Gomba. Why? More than 70% of the people in that place are Muslims. So they will not appreciate it. Now, majority of our traders, you see, many people who are in trade are people who have failed elsewhere. They have not succeeded to become lawyers. If they are there, they are just, the lawyers are there as a second thing. But the majority are people who have run from scratch. By starting to make bricks, from bricks he moves like that and he finds himself in a hardware, from hardware is an importer. And therefore you have to deal with him. For the last 30 years, what has been happening? Yes, the answer is that we have been collecting less money from VAT and other things because of tax evasion and what have you. So you need to improve slowly. You don't just come and you introduce the thing. Lastly, what I saw at Kololo is that we need to be very careful with these traders, because I don't know how many traders today are contemplating to only sell what they have, and the money they are going to get, go and build the Mizigo or go and do anything. So we must be very, very, very careful that we are dealing with a very delicate group of people whose survival can be destroyed by just a day's decision. Traders were giving examples that you come from Dubai or wherever or wherever you're coming from with a container aiming to pay 24 million shillings. You have calculated everything. You reach here and the URA people are saying the man has bought shirts. And the shirt has bought each shirt at $1.5 in Dubai. And he knows that from this, he even has receipts of what he bought. He reaches here, and the URA man says, no, this very good Mark and Spencer shirt cannot be $1.5. He goes, Mark and Spencer is made from UK. UK. 150 pounds. He says, you see the price? You see the price of this thing? But what is difficult for these people to go and establish in Dubai, where these people buy these clothes, second-hand clothes? How much is it? He said, no, they're just hiding in here to evade tax. So a man who was planning to pay 24 million ends up paying now 150. If you take the tax of that, is over 400 million. So the man's container is held in that place. They tell you that a container, they have 9 days. They give them 9 days for a container to go back to where you got it. Now, the container is finishing here months, and every day that it spends, you need $100 per day. Now, this man is going to reach a time, he will go and borrow money, pay. He wants the container to leave because it is a burden to him. He wants his good to leave. So when he gets out of there, there is selling just, they call it afia. That in afia. I'm just selling so that I get some little money out of it. So people are going to collapse, and the tax you are targeting will collapse as well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Robert. That's quite comprehensive and an image you get from Kololo. Major Awich, perhaps you could help us, being from the NRM Secretariat and you interact more with the President. What did the President come to give to these traders that waited for him for about 7 hours before he arrived?
Okay, thank you so much. But I want to make some preambular comment, starting with Sarah, especially in the areas of identifying the tax burden of many states. And I appreciate that she identified that Uganda is one of the least in tax burden compared to other countries. That is very important because our citizens seem to think our tax is the worst. No, we have the least, one of the least tax burden as indicated by Sarah. And if it had come from my mouth, you would doubt it. But now that it comes from the mouth of Sarah,
authority,
you can really see that indeed.
Short trusts use so much.
Yes, so
But Sarah put it right there.
Sarah put it. So please, citizens, as you heard from Sarah, we have the least tax burden.
But very poor.
The other thing I want to comment about is the President's explanation. and this maybe will go to answer your question, is that, first of all, in Museveni's revolutionary methods of work, he did not expect to come with a package of explanation for the traders. Museveni's revolutionary methods of work was to come with an open heart, with an open mind, to listen from the concerns of the traders. And that is why you may mistake him to have looked unprepared. Because the revolutionary methods of work that I grew up in is objectivity. By the way, if you want to know why that objectivity, the literature that we are exposed to is that we start from the reality that matter exists. Matter. So we start from the examination of matter as a reality and leading to sensation. Because matter is there, my sense organ interact with it, and therefore I form a consciousness. So this revolutionary method is very strong. So Museveni, rather than come with a prepacked ideas and what and manipulations and what he wants to explain, he rather comes with an open mind, with an open heart, with nothing to say, can I listen to you? And that to some people misjudge it to be a lack of organization. No, it is our methods of work. Therefore, when the president heard from them, he attempted to respond. And when he responded, as a normal person, where you need to consult, you stay the meeting for the next. Because you are hearing it now, those which you can answer, you can answer. It does, even me on this show, in my revolutionary methods of work, if a topic came up or a question came up that I don't know, I will say I have no answer, I will answer you next time. That is perfectly right. And that is why I could say what he said. So what he said was, especially on the question of VAT, he said, but this VAT is not paid by the traders. This goes to the final consumer. Yours is just to collect it. So why are you crying as if it is you paying it? It's not you paying it. That's what he told them. It is not you paying it. And the IFRIS or the CIFRIS that people are saying is just a method of collecting. It is not a new tax. It's just a method. You are using a method that is collecting tax from the consumer and not you. But the sensational bringing it is like the traders are paying tax themselves. It's just the method. So the president answered that. Also, the president gave this, that please, the tax that we do is for governing you. You may have to open the veil to this. This country, as I've always said, since NRM came to power, many countries have disintegrated in terms of governance. Somalia is no more. Libya is no more. Yugoslavia is no more. Sudan divided into two. Darfur is threatening a third breaking. Many countries have died and disintegrated. So when a president says this money is for governance, is to have a Uganda, which has been a Uganda since independence, where you come from Karamoja, where you come from Lango like me, where it comes from Tororo, Sarah from Ankole, and we are Ugandans. So that is it. Karamoja. No. So that is what he meant by governance. And you can't take this governance for granted, because since 86, you can count the number of countries that are broken. Serbia and Montenegro, I said, at one time went for World Cup. They had qualified for quarterfinals. As they are playing quarterfinals, they heard from home that they are now two countries. So he asked them, say, now if you win this trophy, where are you taking the cup? To Serbia or to Montenegro? So governance, you can't take it for granted. We are one country and sovereign country. Now, I want to also comment about how the president gets into solving this problem. I do not think this blame should be put on the president, because it's a petition. The president has a choice to say, fine, you have petitioned me, I'm not listening to you. Go to Matia Kasaija. But the president is a fountain of wonder. He's the father of the country. If a group, even if a group of disabled petition him tomorrow, okay? I remember in one of a BBC correspondent asking the president that a group of homosexuals wanted to meet him. And he simply smiled. He simply smiled. So what I'm saying is, the president is petitioned by many interest groups. It is discretional for him to choose to meet or not. But again, the good doctor says, these are special group of people. These are very important people. Then why wouldn't the president meet these important people who contribute to our taxes? Now, when he chooses to meet a group of people who are petitioned, again you say he's meddling in everything. That is a contradiction.
Major, the thing is meeting them, but coming in the revolutionary way you talked about.
And there is no solution.
Unaware of anything. Come, listen, and respond.
He responded, I told you, and he stayed. He rescheduled the meeting. Because I told you, in the revolutionary methods of work, you don't come with a preconceived idea. With your answer, you are prepared in your kitchen or in your sitting room. In our revolutionary methods of work, you come with an open mind. Listen there. Answer what you can. Stay the meeting. You can call the meeting the next time. And that's what he did.
Let's speak this information.
Just on this point you are explaining. The president had met traders in State House. They presented him with the same memorandum and the same demands. That's the time he suspended penalties on IFRIs. He only said he wants to meet the bigger group. But he knew all the issues.
And explained to them.
And he had even updated the memoranda before yesterday, before the meeting the other day.
Still, I'm telling you that if in our revolutionary methods of work, we prefer to listen in a forum where people are there. We don't want preconceived idea. You brought it, say, okay, whatever you brought, say it here, and see if you will repeat it. So that is the method of work. Now, finally, I want to comment about the doctor's assessment that the president is coming to his end. Far from it. Now, the Museveni that I know, and I'm saying this with authority because I grew up in NRA with Museveni, seeing him, is such a unique person that at any one time for us we believed in a slogan that Mzee anapanga. It's a Swahili word, Mzee anapanga, meaning Mzee is arranging or is preparing, meaning that he has a solution. He has a solution to it. For example, if you came to a battalion and you said there's no food or no medicine, or if we discovered there was no medicine or food, just said Mzee anapanga. And in a short while, medicine and food will be there. Even in state power, if the university professors of Makere had a strike, for us we believed Mzee anapanga. He would meet them, resolve it, and everybody would be happy. And that Museveni has not changed. The other thing is,
wait, when he dies and
the other thing is, the objectivity that I told you, the revolutionary methods of work that we get from a literature that we read is that matter exists and our point of departure is the existence of matter. That objectivity makes you derive that method of work. Listening to things openly, with an open mind, get the answer if you can, if not, stay the meeting to the next. And that is still strong in Museveni. And I can assure you that sometimes I pity young people who tend to tell people who are old as if being old is advice. No, far from it. A person like Museveni, the older he is, the wiser he becomes.
Okay.
Yeah. And for example, how can a young man abuse you, a doctor at your age, that you are old? Does he know how many body accident you have dodged? Does he know how many malaria you have dodged? This young man tomorrow could die of diarrhea. Now, me who has lived and with a principle that there's a relationship between theory and practice. Theory and practice means what you have seen related to the theoretical aspect. So an older person who has dodged obstacles in life, who has seen challenges and passed through them with resolutions up to now. You can't compare with somebody who is tomorrow, he doesn't even know whether he will die of malaria or diarrhea. That old man has passed all that. That old man has passed all that. So, yes.
Let me give him some information. And the good thing I hear him referring to you as a retired major. You know very well a man who had commanded wars in this country. He commanded Operation Iron Fist. He commanded Operation I don't know what. But he was killed by a small lady in the suburbs of Namuongo there.
So how does it relate to this?
It relates to what you are telling us is not true. Because this man was very old, very trained, very experienced, and everything. He was killed by, they call them what? These women in Namuongo here. And she has been serving a sentence in
I'll think about I'll think about your example later. I don't seem to get it. But the point I'm saying is, far from thinking that Museveni is weak, the point is Museveni is at its best now in wisdom. In wisdom, and I can assure you we will have a solution. Yes, I made you that slogan to demonstrate the fact that to any pending crisis, Museveni has a capability of prescribing a medicine.
Thank you.
Yes, that is the cry we had. That is the cry we had. And that cry still stands.
Thank you, Major.
It's that, you see, again, I want to say this, the democratic trait in him. The traders, if they feel they were not satisfied with the explanation, they have the right to walk away. And that's why he told them, yes, you can walk, but I have told you. So the element of walking away is the inherent Museveni's democratic credentials.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Honorable Othieno, you see, President Museveni had about a week to prepare for this meeting. And
not only a week.
What we hear from Major, which is Muzei is always prepared.
Anapanga.
He always has a plan. Muzei anapanga. What did Muzei panga in the time he had to make the traders hand?
You guys keep calm, man. Calm. Muzei anapanga. Muzei anapanga. Except the only thing I disagree with is that Museveni, unfortunately, is not the father of this country. Museveni is the ruler of this country. He's been the longest serving person. People officially call him president, but he's not the father of this country. This country's father is Milton Obote and is arrested. Countries can't have two fathers. I know somewhere in Namuongo certain situations do happen, but even then, only one father. But guys, it is extremely shocking that very sadly we are giving this topic time. But it's important we do because it's actually a manifestation of the national malaise. My two colleagues have just confirmed it, that, and I said earlier, there's no reason why traders should go to Mr. Museveni. But interestingly, because we are being ruled by Museveni, Comrade Awich has told you that this is absolutely a revolutionary, the NRA way, that which revolution, I actually don't know what it means, because no revolutionary would treat workers the way Museveni treated workers in Kololo. And these are workers in the broad sense. Number two, no revolutionary would treat the most vulnerable of the core element of their business, as my two colleagues have suggested, to a 7-hour wait. Number three, no economist, no sensible average economist, A-level economist, would kill the time of business people who work by the minute, by the hour, having all these other grievances, to go and wait for Muzei to Kopanga at Kolo airstrip for 7 hours. that weight actually is a loss to them,
And Ipanga's nothing.
And
a loss to the Kampala economy,
And it disrupted
inconvenience.
big traffic.
disrupts businesses, and above all, it's a net disruption to the national economy. So what economics Museveni studied, I actually generally continuously say, I have no clue. Museveni went to Luweero, and whatever spoiled his head in Luweero, I have no clue. It seems to have erased everything he did. We paid for him to study in Pentari School and in UPC. Everything we paid for him to study in Dar es Salaam. It erased it completely because that Comrade Awich can say this is the revolutionary who we now can pick Sarah's figures. I'm turning around the conversation. Comrade Awich is very excited that Uganda ranks amongst the lower on tax payments. I don't know whether he also did some reasonable economics, of course. But look.
Yeah, I did economics in Ontari School.
Yes, Ontari School, yes. You know,
and scored very highly.
The fact that Ugandans among the least taxpayers tells you the structural challenges that I think Sarah and all of us have been trying to explain. That, well, something needs to be done. There's something underlying in the economy which is not working. So it's not something to chest thump. It's not that we're a viable, open, relatively free market economy or mixed market economy where the tax burden is least, meaning citizens pay little or no taxes. No, it is simply because we are running a sweatshop economy where, up to even Museveni has no clue, who is running what down in Nkrumah Road. And those are some of the problems. The implementation of free IFRIS, the argument that IFRIS is not a tax. IFRIS is either tax or a huge cost burden to the businesses. There's no way around it. It's an additional inconvenience and therefore a net additional tax to the economy. And I don't know who, either Sarah or Robert, who said that in principle, yes, Sudhir can pay IFRIS, from either the other hotel of his that we gave to him, or whoever manages a big enterprise like Mukwano could possibly pay use IFRIS. But to take these machines to Chikubo is a nonsensical error, and Museveni seems to indicate that he himself recognizes that that was a fundamental error.
He used a smartphone.
The issue is, to the extent that even says so, brings you back to what Robert and Tom were saying.
Use a smartphone.
How do you reach this stage without doing due diligence and early conversation? And I'd said earlier that this tax conversation needs to have been held sufficiently within political parties, but also that we needed to have hard tax experts, and we needed also to have hard economists involved in this, and we needed to have had the technocrats, meaning the public civil servants whom we pay in the respective ministries and different government departments, and indeed including trade agencies. In any case, anyway, the fact that we have trade unions that don't exist, it is also fair to say that, well, trade unions ought to have been much more involved in this. But of course, trade unions these days are pocket organizations for Mr. Museveni. But anyway, in brief, really, I want to say that people went to Kololo and spent all the day is a sign of a country that has failed, a sign of a country going nowhere, and the fact that it's wasting the president's time, at that kind of level to be able to do this. That's unfortunate. Mr. Museveni ought to have been waiting for a direction, a directive, or a report, from respective ministers or public servants, telling him that these are the challenges that the system faces, or maybe we got it wrong here, and these are the reviews that need to be done. And he either says yes or no, something like that, but not to have participated in this. For him, it's really like a market master, and I can imagine Nagongara market, with crooked cent, and Mr. Museveni turning up and say, hey, have you paid, younger man? You need to pay.
Thank you, Honorable, for that. Dr. Sarah, one of the things the President addressed was what he calls the hemorrhage. We keep importing and developing these European economies, and we keep poor, and we cannot support our local trade.
That's why I find him very terrible.
Yeah, the president had his own explanation of import substitution. He was saying the things that build Uganda have no tax, or they attract a small tax. So he was in short telling traders that this country does not need traders. It needs manufacturers. Yet manufacturers cannot also exist.
And Sarah, let
without
me just
traders.
give you information.
Yes.
You see, for us, when we were at school, they would give us a course outline. They would give us a course outline of what you are going to study. So when a lecturer or a teacher came and taught you outside the course outline, we would call it irrelevant. So that was irrelevant.
Thank you.
Yeah. So he also said that when they came from the bush, you know, then I was like, okay, when did these guys come from the bush? I know they came from the bush when I was a child. So do the majority of citizens understand this bush gymnastics? And for how long are we going to discuss the bush? And which bush anyway? When we came from the bush, there was a coffee export tax and we abolished it. So there is no tax on what?
Coffee.
Exports. Meaning that everybody, we shouldn't have traders. Then I saw data from URA published that 52% of Ugandans buy second-hand clothes. Why? Why don't we interrogate our own data? Why is it? You can buy, there are some new clothes you buy and you wear once and it's worn out. I usually buy them when I travel with the kids and we stay long. You buy some new clothes, but you wear it, you wash it, and it becomes see-through. These are the clothes manufactured here. Does he expect everybody to be buying clothes to put on wash once and throw? Because you wear them once and they become see-through. Secondly, you look at, so quality is very poor. Quality of clothes produced here is very poor. Second is the issue of earnings, income for the people. Bank of Uganda data shows that only 1% earn 1 million and above. So where should people get money to buy new clothes? It's like the president dreams of a country is leading away from the real country called Uganda. He's now president of another strange country that we don't know. Because if you have these two data before you, from Bank of Uganda and from URA, how do you tell people that they should consume clothes produced here? I'm sure he also has data from the manufacturers and the quality. I usually spend time to go to Uma Showground to see what the local manufacturers are putting in the trade show when I have time. Now it has become space for scholastic materials because there is nothing much to write home about. You buy shoes made in Uganda. Recently, there was a time they launched a phone made in Uganda. I don't know what happened. A few ministers bought it. I think it made 1 or 2 calls and stopped working. Now nobody talks about it. Look what Kampala Internet launched. Even when the traders are crying for high costs of internet to run e-freeze, I've been waiting for any government official to tell us that there is free internet in Kampala. They also know that it does not exist. Nobody has mentioned. I don't know what else to mention.
You see, Doctor, the argument of the president, therefore, is you traders go out there if we do not have the good clothes you talk about, invest to become manufacturers and create the good things you want to see on the market.
You see,
And
the
government
first thing an economist would look at is the market. If you want to invest, which market are you targeting? If I want to buy, there are high-end clothes here, where you find a shirt or whatever, 1 million and above. But your own data tells you that 1% earn 1 million. Meaning that this income for a month, and that's before pay. So when they take the 40% pay or 36, you are remaining with 600,000. So are you going to buy a shirt of 1 million? Are you?
No, you can't.
So why don't we look at, one, the purchasing power, the market, look at the quality? Because, I don't know, some of us, even you spend a year without buying clothes. So I want to buy high quality clothes that I will wear for 5 years or more. So am I going to buy a t-shirt that I put in water and it becomes threads?
Thank you, Honorable. Thank you, sir.
Indeed, just to complement what Sarah was saying, an A-level, a good average A-level economist, yeah, economic student actually, no economist, would, in response to that, and the challenge you put into Sarah, would say that if you're saying we shouldn't import, invest in domestic economy. So what do? Invest in innovation, invest in education, invest in skilling, invest in infrastructure, invest in quality technology, yeah, invest in information, including the infrastructure about telecoms, but also pay, make innovation pay, meaning encourage young activists down Kurumba Road who come with good ideas to invest in those ones. What do? Invest in domestic quality, inward investment. We've always said with Sarah here, and I think we've talked about this again and again, and I've always used myself as an example. I've always reminded you about ATM and Nitel in Ginger. I've also told you about Nagongara. I think I was telling another network the other day. Nagongara had a factory, where the cotton high quality is taken to ATM in Valley and Nitel, but at the same time producing oil from cotton seeds, for consumed, and soap, and then beyond that, you've created local jobs, and beyond that, the people who are producing cotton have got high-end quality standard of living for themselves. Their children go to local schools, and they freely compete. The Nagongara factory, at the moment, is not only a broken place, but only one of the possibly 30, 40 buildings is a police station. Now, who is Museveni talking to? Links directly to what Sarah is saying. The clothes that we manufactured in the 60s, in this economy, in the 60s, were high-end quality. C&A talks about it, and Marks and Spencer's, meaning high-end global market equality clothes. This Uganda will ever produced it. Today, we are producing, if anything, what Sarah is talking about. On my way back, on my way here, I got stuck in industrial area. Industrial area, deliberately part of Kampala, The shambles down there, I think I even took a picture for one of the roads. And on my way, I had to carve down into Port Bell in order to reach here in time. I went via the coffee plant we always talk about in this place. The coffee plant is a slum at Kampala. So what is Mr. Museveni talking about?
Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. The Citizens Chat Show takes a very short break, and we shall be right back.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media, or to access and use computers, other electronic devices and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
You are still on Uganda's leading freedom platform, the Civic Space TV, and this is the Citizens Chat Show. I am Phillip Muliisa. Today, We took the conversation to Kololo Independence Grounds, and we are discussing the outcomes of the presidential interaction with traders in Kampala, capital city, having a background of them having gone into a strike over a number of issues, including over-taxation, double taxation, the enforcement of IFRI's import, charging imports per kilogram where they're bringing their goods, and a couple of other issues. Now, joining on that conversation is Major Awich Pollar, Honorable Othieno Joseph, Dr. Sarah Bireete, and Dr. Ojambo Robert. In this second segment, Doctor, I want to start with you, and I want you to speak to something the President talked about in that address. He did mention that the money the government collects is money to be used to build this country. And he continued to say that if they do not do so, then it is the people that still have a lot of time in this country, the younger generation, that will suffer if the government does not do the building they are doing today. What do you pick from that message as the President put it?
Yeah, the message, according to me, is a very good message. That's what the President should be speaking. And it is true that the money we collect, as I said earlier, we run our budget by collecting taxes because government does not produce any other thing. So they rely on government, taxes and grants to run the government. So that is very true. But unfortunately, he was saying it in the wrong place. That is the only problem I have with that statement. These traders had come with the issues which are affecting their trade. And the Major said that the President was getting their views so that he can think about them. But he went down to break one by one issue, and he would give an answer to each one of them. He gave an answer to VAT. He said VAT, there is nothing that is going to happen to it, and IFRIS has no problem. And I agree with him, VAT is not a matter of the President. I've already said here that VAT is a matter of policy. If there is supposed to be anything to change about VAT, it must be in Ministry of Finance and finally in Parliament of Uganda. I agreed with him. The only issue which he promised to traders, and the traders, if I were them, they should really prepare that day to go and do more serious business. Because they were saying, how do I pay VAT on two accounts? One, where my commodities have been taken on credit, but the VAT thing is already accounting that I have sold. Because when that IFRIS thing, to give a perspective, is that once commodities enter a shop, they are recorded by barcodes. Like this mineral water thing has a barcode. It's recorded that it is in shop A. And therefore, when it leaves that shop A, it must have a receipt that this has been sold. So I have given water, mineral water, on credit. How do you register? And therefore, the tax system will continue. So he said that one, he needs to ask his people, and they see how they can pay it. Then the other one was if you make losses, because people are telling him that sometimes they tell afia. Tala afia means that they are selling at loss. They bought something at a given price, but because of problems, maybe they are demanding for rent and what have you, he sells at. So that one also he said is going, he was saying they can delay it, but how they would delay it was not very clear. So he was only going to find information on how they can continue paying IFRIS, but on good ways. For example, a trader said that when you enter goods in a shop, mineral water, and you don't register in IFRIS that you receipted it, the penalty is 6 million. 6 million. So the penalties he has stopped them, I don't know whether, but the trader said they were being charged. The traders told him that they were being charged even when, because this is a system thing. He said they were being charged the way that the president said. So for me, I really feel, to answer your question, is that the president was saying good things in a wrong place. For example, 80% of his speech was on manufacturing. He talked about manufacturing of goods and services. He talked about how they have put in place land for free to give to manufacturers in Namamve and other areas. He talked about that they have set an interest for manufacturers to be at a certain level. They have put electricity for manufacturers to be bought at a certain level. They're even giving manufacturers money. And he mentioned the number of people. He said there are over 300, and some of them were brought there to say something. There was only one lady who really disappointed the president, and the president chased her away because she was not saying anything to what he was trying to explain. And I thought the president should do better in that area, because some of us who keep watching these things, we are now imagining the president is here, Kaimbira, Dramakta or something. You remember the other issue of arresting terrorists in Masaka? Left the president very ugly. Now again, this one, terrible. But to go back to the point, he talked about all those good things. But unfortunately, the president forgot that he's not speaking to manufacturers. He's speaking to traders. And Ugandan traders are not even the traders we studied in schools. These sophisticated people. Ugandan traders are people who see a good somewhere. They see a difference in Jawulo they can get from that thing. They bring it to you. They are not these people who are very formalized traders. In fact, if you try to find out, majority of them even don't have companies, trading companies. They use other people's company. For example, one importer from Dubai can bring goods for 50 people. 50 people pull together money. They give one person who is able to get a visa and go and buy the things. He brings and distributes to these people. Our economists should know about that. Number two, they even sometimes don't have a capital to trade. He goes to Othieno, he says, give me 200 million. I am going to Dubai right now. When I come back, I'll give you the money after selling the goods. And he picks that 200 million, he goes. So that man, you have to be very careful with him. He can collapse anytime. He can go to jail anytime. This money is not even on written agreement. It's just a gentleman's thing. Number three, the traders had gone to Kololo with the expectation of a solution to a hell of their problems. The one of Chinese, he just abused them. He really, and the president's abusive, very, very abusive these days. He abused them. He said they are senseless. On the issue of Chinese, let him keep quiet. Let them keep quiet. Because that was one of the major issues, where a manufacturer, a purported manufacturer, becomes a trader. And therefore, it becomes very difficult to compete with him or her. So at the end of the day, that one, he said they should shut up. Then on the issue of clothes in kilograms, no solution. It is going to continue. But that one, as I've also been telling people, the solution lies in Minister of Finance taking a law to Parliament to change, because it's by law. That is by law. So the president, even if he directed, the president has no power to remove some laws. He can suspend some laws. But you see, that's why I don't agree with the Major Awich. You see, the minister, by the way, in some of these things has powers. Because ministers, I was reading some standing orders, can suspend some of these things for some time when there is a crisis. So by now, the ministers should have already seen areas which needed to be suspended and work. Because the logic of clothes in kilograms, that one can never come. Then on those other issues, there were 9 of them. So the president, the only thing that the traders got there was to be promised that they will not be charged penalties. That is the only thing out of the many things that they asked. So the president, in my view, was speaking to very nice things to the wrong people. And I think that for me, I feel very bad. And you have been saying that the president is working for us who are still living here, but nobody knows the calendar of when we shall die. In Uganda, you both die when you are young and old. It doesn't matter whether you are young. If you are in bad circumstances, you can even die on your first date of birthday or before it. So I don't think that the president should be really, and the president keeps contradicting himself. When he was in Masindi, he said he does not work for us. He was working for his family. So which president is this? And does he keep changing?
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you. Major, when you listen to all this, the common statement is the president did not address many of the issues the traders had on that day and even before that day. What is the president planning? What is happening in cabinet, at the secretariat? Do we have a solution being, using your word, panga?
Yes, of course, there are all matters in place in terms of policies, in terms of, first of all, the National Planning Authority position being implemented in our manifesto, and everything is in place. There is no cause for worry. There is a steady progress. You see, a society is a society, even at a family level. Even when you plan with your wife and children, it doesn't move on a flow. Circumstances come where challenges are met and it needs a solution. Those contradictions that come in society, once resolved, is a progress forward. And it is inevitable in society. And that is why in legal system, laws keep on being amended. Because by the time you are making the law, you have thought it well and good. You put it to implementation. 3-4 years, circumstances come. So these are normal contradictions that happen in life. First of all, you can see technology is there. The advent of technology itself brings new things and brings new challenges. So these challenges and contradictions that are happening in society should not alarm us to make us feel like there's really something out of place. Let me comment about the 7 hours wait. There's comment about the 7 hours wait that the traders waited for the president. You know, and this now it takes me back again to the issue of the age of the president and competency there too. President Museveni, even at his age, I really work closely with him. He can hold 20 meetings in a day. So being late there is actually because he was sleeping or having tea. No, I am sure he had had several meetings before he came. And some of these meetings, you really find, even if you're a president, you want to say, I'm going to Kololo, but somebody is still laboring to bring a point, whether it's an ambassador from US, or whether it's some human rights people, or whether it was meeting judges. But you can see that the wait, the 7 hours wait, was not an idle wait. It was a wait where I'm very sure there are some proceedings meeting which go over and above, and for which the only thing you can say is sorry. So I want us not to overread into overreading the 7 hours wait, as if somebody was sleeping somewhere. No, I'm sure there were 4 other meetings in State House before he came.
But Major, with the President Museveni, that is his habit. He will never say meeting and he comes on time. Not at any one time have I seen the president free.
I've been with the president, he will have meeting up to 5 in the morning.
Does he have
no sleeping?
As a matter of interest,
no sleeping.
With respect, does he have diary managers? Because we're very concerned.
Yes, the PPS is there. He manages
so what
the diary.
then is their job? And we pay them, by the way.
Yes, sometimes in some meetings, if you decide to end a meeting, even if you are the president, it appears so rude. So you are listening to an ambassador. You're listening to an ambassador. Is His Excellency the ambassador? You can't say stop there. You can't.
By the ambassadors. Sorry. If with respect, ambassadors have worked with them, and most of us have worked with. No, these guys keep time. We keep time. I've also been an ambassador.
yeah.
No, very precise.
Okay, I'm giving you the example that assuming a man of dignity is talking, or even a bishop for that case, if you remove the ambassador, replace it because you seem to be so particular with my example. Assuming he was meeting a bishop, and the bishop is still
bishops
and then
which business with bishops?
So we have already talked that many of these meetings are petitioned. So you can choose to say, I don't want to listen to you. But if he chooses to listen to somebody who has asked for a meeting, then there be it. So you can't say, okay, even if he was meeting some group of disabled, you can't say, I don't want to stop there, I'm rushing to Kololo. Out of courtesy, you will say, you finish. And in the process of finishing, meeting in Kololo, they are waiting for you. So now, I want to talk about the president's tax emphasis. There are specific points that the president emphasizes in his tax. For example, the president made it clear that if you are importing, if you are an importer, the trader, because my colleague seems to say that the president shouldn't talk about manufacturers, but he says if you're a trader and you are importing things that promote development in Uganda, we don't tax you. And the list is many, whether you're importing medical equipment or tractors, I think even scholastic materials. The list is so wide that if you bring that for development, it's okay. What he was making tax emphasis on, clearly in economics, that congressman keeps doubting Museveni's economics. There are things that you buy and you surely know that you are promoting the other economy. And that is what is on. So the president's emphasis on taxation is very clear. Import, bring a tractor here. Bring the medicine here. Bring scholastic material. Bring this thing, a machine for manufacturing. You are an importer. Importing a machine for manufacturing doesn't mean you are a manufacturer. You are importing for sale. You are importing for sale. So for him, he's saying, when you import that, we really protect you in tax. So the president's tax emphasis is for us not to lose money. On the contrary, is for us to develop. And that is his emphasis, and he's very clear about that, and I think, thank you.
These import things that do not have market?
They
like
do.
the machines? How many?
Of course, you know that we are working in a supply and demand market economy. But you can't tell me that these things don't have a demand here. No, they do. And by the time he imports, he would have assessed the demand. We operate in that free market economy. The other thing I wanted to comment about is my reading into your question to our good doctor. You wanted him to make emphasis about Museveni's allusion to his 80 years and his seeing God. You see, when he said this, he was saying it with a sense of humor. We all know biologically that when you are 80, you are getting weaker biologically. So that is what he imported with a sense of humor. With a sense of humor, he was communicating his message that for me at my 80 years, don't think so much about me. All the emphasis we are making is for the younger generation. Of course, I saw some headline in the social media saying Museveni hints on his death, how he's going to meet his creator. Those are people who choose to sensationalize it and making headlines. But the point here is the president was making a sense of humor, using his age, and said, look, countrymen, I am 80 years, so I can go anytime. And true, biological sense speaking. But he was making emphasis, which you shouldn't lose focus on the protection of our people. But with a sense of humor, some people would choose to read the sense of humor and leave the rest.
How strong is the president currently?
The president is very strong. I told you that Museveni can chair a meeting up to 5 in the morning and is able to listen to each and everything you're saying and make resolutions. And where he can't make resolutions, he will promise you to get back to you. Up to morning. He is very strong. Now, the other thing is, the good doctor comments about powers of ministers. I always say that sometimes we really make our viewers learn. The powers of ministers in specific legislations may be there. But normally what happens is that we have the hierarchy of laws. You have the constitution, which is the grand norm, the law. Now, each and every provisions in the constitution may attract a legislation in parliament to operationalize it. Okay? let's give an example. Article 219 talks about the National Security Council. There shall be a National Security Council. That is a constitution provision. So that is level 1. Level 2, Parliament now makes a law called the National Security Council Act. Okay? Now level 3 is where you see the ministers. The law will provide that the ministers will provide regulations for this. So it is in those regulations that ministers always have powers to do this, to do that, to do. I think that is what you are saying.
Yeah, but you see, like for the taxes thing, what these people of Kasita and the Federation of Uganda, FUTA, and what have you are complaining about are mainly regulations.
That is what I'm saying.
And that's what I'm saying. I wanted our viewers to benefit from that general legislative framework. That you have a constitution. I gave the example of Article 219. You have the law made by Parliament and regulations there too. So it is true that regulations should be made and should be convenient, because without a regulation, the law becomes so static and rigid. Regulation is supposed to support the oiling and the discretionary way to oil the law for its operation, for its activation. So I just wanted the viewers to know that, and if therefore there is a lack of it in this situation, then it can be provided, can be amended. Or if it is it that needs to be invoked by the minister to apply for it to operate, then it should be invoked.
Thank you, Major. I don't know whether you want to conclude.
No, I can stay there for now.
Thank you so much. I want to come to you, Honorable Ojambo. Briefly, as we conclude on this topic, in the UPC perspective, what needs to be done for these traders to be sure and comfortable in their environment?
Congress has no solution.
Such a situation wouldn't arise under UPC administration, and this is not a topic we'll be discussing. Under a UPC administration, and I think it's important you ask that, I believe that even the context within which we're discussing this is slightly misleading, that we need to broaden this conversation so that we don't see these traders in isolation of the broader economy. These traders are complaining about excess and undue taxes and another stealth tax in the form of IFRIs. But we've not discussed that these traders are doing trading because many of them are people who may have dropped out of school because their parents died. And while under UPC administration, all orphans in Uganda had free education from primary to the extreme end, under NRA it doesn't exist. And that under UPC administration, some of these traders who fail out of P7 but passed well enough would have gone to a technical institution for free, and the NRA wouldn't be. So these guys then go and get themselves forced then. And to be fair, as a disclaimer, part of what Comrade Robert Ojambo was saying, that whereas predominantly many of these people may be people who have struggled to school, many of these traders are actually graduates, and many of these people would have been people who opted to do these jobs because they couldn't find jobs in their respective trades. I have a very successful, I must say, young trader from half Bushenyi, half Hoima, and from a relatively organized family, worked successfully in the bank, had a particular situation of the bank and couldn't return to work with a young family, and opted to start doing one-on-one, and now thankfully is managing an average shop off the side. This trader actually goes to collect goods from Chikubo, and so therefore are directly impacted. And these are the people we are talking about. So this is a broad spectrum of our economy. So that plus many other people whom I also know, and most of us know, people who, including some young lawyers who may not necessarily have yet reached up to scale. I have a very beautiful lawyer, except that she went to, she went to Beranyanje, but not except she went to Beranyanje, does very extremely well. But because of the struggles at that stage in legal matters, decided to pick up on to baking, as something to complement. And again, she, I know, would go to Chikubo. So these are the broader issues. So this is not in isolation. So when you talk about UPS and governance, you'd broadly look into this thing. So one, you deal with the underlying issues. I said the question of skilling, the question of broader creation of jobs, which I think part of the point that Sarah mentioned today, but I think she was much more specific about it also the last time we discussed these things. When you expand the economy, you expand the tax base, and therefore the economy benefits to the extent therefore that actually, while we may be talking about the size of the tax burden, or rather the number of people who are paying taxes in terms of tax ratio, it may not necessarily be saying that we are very kind to people, to our citizens, that they don't pay tax. It's simply that they're not there, like Sarah's telling you, that where people who earn 1 million shillings and above are such a small portion of our population. The majority of the other people are in this false tax economy, people who can hardly afford a cup of tea, per week. So these are the broader issues. But then finally, on this from a national perspective, you might be talking about from a UPS perspective, we have not discussed today that even if these people pay their taxes, I mean, Sarah talked about some of them, what would these taxes do? Does it sort out the masses on the streets of Kampala? Does it guarantee their security? Does it guarantee to see them? And I said this in the last program again, many of these traders, particularly the women, are single mothers struggling with the children for childcare. Many of these people are single mothers, and perhaps some of them are possibly widowers, struggling with children going to secondary education, and they've got to pay school fees. Under the UPS administration, you would not. And the UPS system, we provided universal education, except minimum for primary and minimum for O-level, and we're on track to get universal education from primary to secondary at a quality level, meaning up and including facilities like education, scholastic material. This is the broader conversation that needs to be had. But let me just conclude this, that as we have these conversations, I genuinely believe that this debate should not be confined to traders. And I think as we discuss, I hope the younger guys watching this program and many other people of Sarah's generation must pick interest to say that, look, what is really happening to the tax regime in this country? What is happening to our taxes? And where are really the trade union movements in this country? The people who should be speaking on behalf of either marginalized traders or marginalized smallholder employees, many of them who get mistreated and abused, particularly women in workplaces who get used and abused, and in many cases, some of the situations in which they need to be able to hug bosses if they're to get promotions. So it's about really the national malaise of an economy in which the person whom we pay the most to be our supervisor as a mini parent is actually patronizing and being dismissive to amongst the most vulnerable contributors to the tax base.
Thank you so much, Honorable. And Dr. Sarah, briefly as we conclude on this topic, what is the way forward? The president didn't have a solution, like you say. The traders are back to business. What happens?
Yeah, for my think, if the president had no solution, there was no need to gather people. The exercise of executive authority. When the leaders of these groups met the president in State House, he offered the solution that he talked to in Kololo, suspending penalties. So if he had nothing new to add, why gather people? Because as much as we, I belong to the school of thought that the president has overstayed his welcome in terms of occupying that position. I don't love to see my president also being ridiculed in public functions. Don't intimidate me. A president, number one citizen. So if he had nothing new to offer, why did he call for that meeting? But my reading of the situation is that he was buying time because the taxes are a creature of the law. He was buying time so that Parliament does not take a decision. Parliament passed the bills on taxation. Then he meets the traders after the tax amendments. The 5 bills were passed early this week. Then now, by giving the traders a date of 20th, he's also buying time away from the budget, state of the nation, also to come after this process is concluded and there's nothing new to do. So he's playing on the minds of the traders, and the traders could read between the lines. That's why they were shouting back at him. But that's not a good picture for me as a citizen to watch. So what's the way forward? From which countries are we benchmarking from? You know, as much as we say some of the fake products are from China, because China produces according to the economies of the countries. They have first world goods, second world. So if you come from Uganda, I want things to sell at 20,000, they have everything for everybody. But what facilitates them to produce in such a way? Both produce, import, because they import raw materials. China has an import-export bank for traders. So what infrastructure do we have to facilitate trade? And even to help, I saw manufacturers in a debate, you know, sharing their own issues. They also have their own, you know, line of complaints and demands, including the unfair treatment between local manufacturers and foreign investors. Also, it's important to note that Ugandans in diaspora have surpassed globally the investment of foreign direct investments in all countries, including Uganda. So if we have our diaspora population bringing more revenue in this country, more than the foreign direct investment, so what is the wheelbarrow about glorifying investors? Why can't we settle down and draft laws that encourage productivity of the economy and the general improvement of all households countrywide, other than going on with the bailouts for those who can access the president? The friends of the president get bailout from parliament. I saw even the bills, tax debate in parliament, some names of people also seeking bailouts, patronage. Then you have those who don't pay tax, whose containers pass through URI. The traders know. People, Ugandans who don't pay tax, we are talking of a container paying $100 per day, just holding. But you have people who come in and they don't pay even import tax and everything, and they go and compete with the other traders. Then we have Ugandans who get free taxpayers' money. How do you build a national wealth with such disparities and controversies? You can't.
Thank you so much. And indeed, some of these things need to be addressed so as to build a country that is organized, is progressive, and the future is secured, like Major likes saying. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for those amazing views, and I think government should be able to pick from the knowledge shared here and see that some of the things are streamlined. Now, in the last and brief segment of the show, we want to shift and briefly give our voices to what befell the country. A couple of government officials being sanctioned by global powers. We had sanctioning of the Speaker of the Parliament of this country, the Right Honourable Anita Among, by the UK government, together with two former ministers, the Honourable Bireete and Agnes, relating to the scandal they were involved in, of the Iron Sheets scandal. It was very popular in this country, and I think every Ugandan really knows about this, the Mabati saga, like it's normally talked about. And I want to start with you, Major Awich. NRM officials sanctioned, and they are not the first. In the recent past, we've had the sanctioning of, for example, General Kale Kaihura. We had General Erweb sanctioned. What does this...
General Musei.
Yes, General Sabit Musei.
Yeah. Was he sanctioned?
Yes.
Yes, he was. And a couple of
Really?
others. What does this tell of the NRM government and how it's progressing?
Of course, sanction is not a good thing. It is unfortunate. How I wish it is not used as a measure of government performance, because some of these people are sanctioned on their own individual culpability. So we wouldn't use it as a measure of government performance. But for me, as Director of External Affairs of the ruling party, who ideally, as a party, form a manifesto which the Minister of Foreign Affairs should be using anyway. So ideally, the ministry extracts from me. Because when we go for election to the masses, the people vote for the party manifesto and our flag bearer. We form the government after the election. So it is a party which is the father of the government. But of course, there's money in government, so people seem to think government is stronger than a party. No, it is the reverse. So it worries me as Director of External Affairs because a sanction is not a good thing. And maybe our colleagues don't even understand sanctions. I have had the opportunity to work in the United Nations for 8 years at a very high level. Call it a UN judge of human rights in Geneva. So I got to know how these functions are effective. They are not good, even for individuals. I give you a small example of what I went through. It demonstrates what a sanction is. We were told to do security training. Like if you are running, jogging, jog on the side where the cars are coming. Don't turn your back. Because even in Kampala, these ones who are driving Land Cruisers, you don't know what they're thinking. Their heads are not working. Some of them woke up in the morning as they get out of the gate. A concubine came with 2 children and said, "Kwata bana yo." The man is driving. The man is driving on the street. The man is driving. His head is not working. So he knocks you by accident. So the security training is saying, run the other side where you can see. When he's staggering, you jump off. If you go to Karamoja, choose not a very high hotel room 6. Choose room 4, but don't also choose room 1. You know, such simple things. So I didn't do this training. So when it came to time for my air ticket to go back to Geneva, it wasn't coming. I rang the air ticket office. They said, Mr. Pollar, did you do security training? I said, no, I didn't do it. I'm coming to do it in Geneva. It's a simple thing. I said, no, sir, you have to do it. Why? Because the system is designed in a way that when you do it, it prints a certificate. And that computer number generated goes to your system. So whether they want to print an air ticket, even if my wife was working in the air ticket office, cannot. Even the check cannot. Everything. So the sanction as it is, states or institutions like UN, they design a university professor of Harvard or School of Economics to design it. The professor simply sells it to them as a product. So don't joke with it. And again, the other thing is that our people don't seem to know that many of these companies, other bodies have interest. For example, you can see Stanbic, for example, or ABSA. How do you know that British government shares their interest? And their laws would be saying where British have interest. And it's just a flash. You go, you will find your ATM not working. Your check can't print. You go to even say an air company, air ticket, Awich Pollar, air ticket can't come. It's automatic. It's so institutionalized, like the case I showed you about my doing security training, where you can't, air ticket can't come, checks can't, everything is jammed. So, a sanction is not something you take simply. It's a very serious matter. It can affect and destroy you. So, the persons who have been involved, it is unfortunate. I wish they were not. But I also don't think it should be used as a study for government performance because they are involved in their own individual culpability. But I want to draw the attention to Ugandans and everybody that a sanction is not a mere having your property in America. A sanction is so networked and can crush you. So let's not do it. I personally move around the world talking to government to explain our position so that as a government we don't reach that level. So a sanction is bad. Finally, on this area, I've been thinking about this. Like for my friends, the ministers, Nandutu and the rest, maybe, apart from sanction, trouble or management, do we ever reach a point where people seem to think that there's a dialectical relation between competency and getting problems in offices that you have? Because it looks like some people take tasks that are way above them. I was simply imagining that maybe Because if you have task that is within your means, you can work and retire or work and finish your mandate. But if you take a task that you can't manage, you'll be like running, falling, running, falling. So we should only think about the competency of man. I mean, if they give you, you have a right to decline.
I can't manage.
Yes.
So
now, you are not, you see, Sarah, don't be a kind of a minister who is appointed. Today, Sarah. And in Sarah's head, Sarah is appointed a minister. And the first thing in Sarah's head is, when I go to Bushenyi, the RDC will see me. When I go to the LC5 chairman will see me. Or the GISO. You have no idea about policy decisions. What will I make? What are the effect, the consequences of policies I will make as a minister?
What you are describing can't apply to me. You find another name.
I'm giving the example. So I want to say that we should we should evaluate ourselves, the competency vis-a-vis the task that we take. If we don't, you take up a task, you will deny your chance the ability to serve your mandate, finish, either go to the next or not. Sometimes it takes your life. So a sanction is bad, but whoever is sanctioned cannot be used as a measure to judge governments. They are indicted in their individual culpability.
Thank you so much. Dr. Ojambo, you see, you have top government officials sanctioned to the level of the Speaker of the Parliament of Uganda. What does that tell of the politics of this country?
Yeah, I really feel that Britain delayed. These many people should have been put where they belong. Because you are a Speaker of a National Assembly and you are being involved in things of village petty thieves, that you have stolen Mabati. For sure, this should be village petty thieves. If I was to be a thief, I would not choose to steal Mabati, because really I would think that is something of low caliber.
You'd steal chicken?
No, I would steal guns. They are very profitable in this third world country where there is a lot of war. I would get a lot of money. I would steal guns, I can tell you, but I'm not a thief. That is if for. So I really feel that it's an embarrassment to our country, a very big embarrassment. I've been seeing people very happy. But you see, once they say your father is a thief, and you are a real son or daughter of that man, by DNA, you are also a thief. The other ministers I want to bear with. I mean, I want to agree with the Major. The other one was a big person at the university, and maybe was used to publications and research. He was not very sure about government proceedings. With the other minister, the deputy minister for the same docket, that one was really, this is why I normally feel that my president lets me down. When he appointed that person, I just know it's recipe for disaster. And the disaster had to come. You can't pick somebody who is trying to survive in life and you say this person is going to help another group of people who are in disaster. This one is also a survivor in life. So I think it was a very bad thing. But now let me go to the sanction and its implication to the country. First of all, let's look at the speaker. And that's where I want to slightly disagree with the Major. That when they indict a person in the seat of the Speaker of Parliament of Uganda, if it was in Britain or any other good countries that we admire, by this time that person would not be in that seat. Because it creates a very big problem for the country. You can imagine now we are in the Commonwealth. There's one Commonwealth meetings, there is a lot of things happening, but our speaker cannot attend such meetings so long as the British are involved. That means that Uganda cannot attend at that level of speakers. So that is a terrible thing to our country and to the NRM. In fact, this is a punch. If the NRM thought that they were making a robot to punch other people, like she tried to suggest when we were speaking before we came here, then the robot has punched the real person. This is a punch in NRM's face because this is a number 3 person in the hierarchy of government of Uganda. The other ministers, you can forget about them. Those ones can die, and we say one lady died plus some other 2 unidentified women. But remember, they are also ministers. They are cabinet ministers.
Although
They were
just
a cabinet minister and a deputy minister. But this one is speaker, number 1. Number 2, we thought that it was a British issue. And people are saying, the British, those are just colonial tendencies. And it is an extension of neocolonialism. A few days, United Arab Emirates. They are not colonialists in any perspective. I would be deceiving students.
And they are against homosexuality.
Yeah. So that's the second thing I'm coming to. That one removed the neocolonialism issue. It shows that this is a public relations issue, in my view. And therefore, for Uganda as public relation officers, it has become very difficult. That's why now Obore, who was defending on the first one, on this one, his mom, I've not heard him say anything. Lastly, there are people who have argued that, you see, Britain are just sour graping. That they are sour graping after the loss or in the fight for homosexuality in Uganda. They are now angry because this is the person who presided over the anti-homosexuality bill, which then became an act. But then why not sanction the real mover of the motion? So there, the person who should have been slapped would have been Asumani Basalirwa, because he's the one who, and also the whole parliament, because they are the ones who passed it. For the first time, that one passed in unison, with the exception of Odoi Tanga, not Odoi Tanga, Fox Odoi, and another person, two like this. The rest, it was an omnibus law. Then, for me, I feel that this should be a very big thing to the leaders. And I think that the government of Uganda should do something in this case if we want. You know, when you come back maybe from somewhere and you are dirty, the best thing is just to clean the dirty linen and let the person get out when it's better. So the government of Uganda needs to do something very fast to deal with this problem. It means that their relations, Major, your public relations are not doing very well. Because UK cannot sanction Anita Among without a serious discussion with the president. They must have discussed and lost. Because it is not possible. Because this is not a common person. Major should not tell you that Anita Among is a common Ugandan like me who drives and knocks and they say, man knocked him. They have to first check on my ID. Anita Among is number 3 in the government of Uganda.
Thank you so much. Honorable Cheno, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs came out to say that actually government of Uganda is undertaking measures, including having some of these individuals in courts of law trying to answer to what they did, and they are saying they should have waited to see the mechanisms government of Uganda is undertaking to ensure there is justice. And there is a word in there that says it is an act of overreach. Is it an act of overreach in the management of the affairs of Uganda from the UK and UAE?
There's some work going on around these studios. I saw them when I was coming in. Just on our way out, just walk out, go and steal a spade. Just go and steal a spade. Just try and taste steal, because you're not a thief. And then run with it and see what will happen. So when did these Mabati things happen? How long ago was it? And just like Comrade Ojambo says, let there be an allegation, a claim that in your pocket was seen something that looks like a bullet, not even a gun, under this NRA regime. You see how they'll swoop. You see these guys who follow Museveni, in this convoy of his, Actually, if they hear it's a pistol, the people who will come for you will be like a quarter battalion. And swiftly, it won't be tomorrow, it will be tonight. So, Mabati is stolen from the most vulnerable in this country in huge numbers by amongst the richest and the most privileged, including the finance minister, and Museveni is number 2. Yeah? Stolen. True. Stolen. And those stolen Mabati from the most vulnerable. Linked to that, money is associated with these Mabatis. Several billions, I can't remember the figure. And linked to that are goats, some of which never reached. So this Mabati thing itself is such a national scandal that if it was in a normal democracy under UPC administration, we would have resigned as a government. By the way, it would not be about sacking this. Would have resigned as a government and asked for an interim administration to call for fresh elections, to seek fresh mandate. That is how damaging it is. And in the very least, if I were a leader of the country at the time, at least, if we had a governing mandate, I would resign as leader. 23 of my cabinet ministers involved in this kind of scandal, and I did not have an eye for it. I would resign and hand over to my, in this case, Museveni would not hand over. The 3 of them would resign because then we would get a chief justice and then we get an interim election. Something.
No, you just hand over to Muhozi.
Well, under UPC there would be no Muhozi anyway, so thankfully. But you don't understand. I'm saying what would normally happen. So really, it is that bad. So the idea that, there was time, because I'm asking you a question directly, that they were going through an investigation is a nonsense. And then number 2, why these 3? Number 4, where is the Minister of Finance? Number 5, where is Museveni's Vice President? Number 6, where is the other guy who used it actually to insult Muslims by doing that? Was it for a goat or for pigs? The housing thing. He said for goats.
He said it was for goats.
For goats. Whatever comes. So no, it is terrible. But like Comrade Awich said, for the first time in a very long time, I'm agreeing with him. It's such a serious thing. The shocking thing, though, is
you should be agreeing with me every day.
The shocking thing is how these guys are taking it as a laissez-faire, taking a defensive posture, including from my beautiful sister Anita Mongi, that almost as if it's business as usual. I don't know why they're wearing this thing, that impression that they can deal with it. First, the culprits, particularly led by the speaker. But number 3, Robert.
Yes.
No, Chris Obora came. Obora came and issued a statement. And it was actually one of the most unfortunate statements ever given by actually a spokesperson for an institution like Parliament, let alone someone who's supposed to be an experienced journalist. So maybe this calls to question some of the issues that Bireete was talking about, criteria for some of these positions. Very unfortunate. In fact, it's a huge indictment on your regime. Obora should not have been the person to come out, regardless. I think it should have been a senior minister who would come to calm down the situation and talk diplomatic things and say, you guys, we are listening and, we take note of all these other things. We don't agree, whatever the case. But by and large, I think these are matters which are serious and got huge diplomatic implications between Britain and the UK. And I know we've got to close this, and I'm one of the persons who are rushing away. Robert raised a very important point. The fact that Britain is the mother of our parliament is actually our colonial chief and the home to the Commonwealth. It's got a huge implication. And I hadn't even thought about it from that perspective as far as Anita Mong is concerned. But that said, the British are just doing a wrist on Uganda. For sanctions, as already explained, it would have been worse. If it was the kind of sanctions that we pushed for South Africa, the kind of sanctions, particularly punitive sanctions that the British and Americans put on the likes of the Robert Mugabes, no, the sanctions would be on Mr. Museveni and the entirety of his top generals in the cabinet. And in any case, why I think they're also hypocritical is why they're sanctioning these 3, not the entire group led by their commander-in-chief, who is Mr. Museveni, and why they're sanctioning these ones, and they forget that in NRA there are people who went and broke and nearly raped Congo for their resources. So we've got so many stories about which we should be talking about sanctions. And finally, I would want, of course, the legislation the British are using much more recent, yes. Granted, But maybe we need to go back to the likes of the Jim Muhwezis and bring them back here. And the more we do that, the more we actually expose partly the hypocrisy of the people who are doing the sanctioning, but partly the mess this regime has subjected us, meaning it's a big embarrassment for me now to be walking around the world again saying, I'm a Ugandan, think I'm a boss. A bunch of thieves being ruled by a bunch of thieves, but in majority of us Ugandans are not thieves, we're very decent people, we're just under siege by NRA. Final point, Ugandans, I think we just need to wake up. We are being used and used by a crude regime. The sanctions is not a panacea because some people are showing excitement. Now the regime is coming to an end. No, you just need to have the eye for. The British are doing it in targeted, strategic way, partly pushing their interests, partly also trying to qualify their position for their electors. It is important. The public opinion is very important. They need to be seen to be doing something. That's why this program is important. Many people who watch you think that don't know that citizen activism is important. Citizen activism works elsewhere. It should also be able to work in Uganda. And in part, that was the reason why the British government responded.
Thank you so much. Dr. Sarah, Honorable Anita Mount came out to say that he's being targeted and because of the passing of the anti-homosexuality bill, and therefore he's carrying the cross of 48 million Ugandans in that regard.
At least not mine.
Well, sanctions are usually clear. There is no sanction that will be vague and leave room for guessing. They communicate the reason because these are diplomatic tools. The UK Anti-Corruption, the Global Anti-Corruption Act, enacted in 2021, is a replica of the US Global Magnitsky Act, and it applies globally. So once you're sanctioned, and the reason was stated, stealing from the poorest of the poor, the Kalmajongo, I remember on this show, it's when we said, this is a cabinet of monkeys, picking bananas. Yeah, so Ugandans passed their own indictment before. I agree with Awich on two issues. One is that sanctions are very serious. The second issue I agree with him is that some of the people appointed by his boss are incompetent. And that, of course, is a verdict.
So why don't you agree with me in everything?
On the appointing authority. Where I disagree with Awich is to say that these sanctions have no bearing on the NRM regime. Because the reason you are attracting sanctions is because of impunity. Excessive impunity under NRM.
It is not mentioned in the sanctions.
I'm saying, the Global Instruments Act, when the national instruments are failing or have failed to act, and that is the principle in international law, you know it. So, when you hear, and I don't know how many people have been sanctioned, because most of the sanctions are silent, especially by the American government. You go to apply for a visa, they tell you no. You are sanctioned. You can't travel to America. You have all the reason. So most people who are sanctioned, especially visa travel, are yet to know by the US government. I wish they were public. So this regime is competing with the regime of General Bashir in Sudan in terms of the number of sanctions on its top officials, security and government officials. It's really a scandal. It's a scandal. Yes, the NRM government might not pay an immediate cost, but you are paying an international cost for impunity, and you are creating an embarrassment to Uganda next to the one created by Idi Amin. Because we can't be competing with General Bashir with all the draconian way he governed the country. It's very unfortunate.
Thank you so much. Major, briefly, what is the NRM government doing to see that all these negative things about
I think the impunity part is what the other statement came up about. Impunity would mean that a wrong happens and you don't have institutional framework of addressing. The institutional framework here is that 3 ministers were produced before court, and there are yet a list of other suspects. So you can't now impute impunity on the side of government.
She can't charge.
On the part of, but at least the 3 are charged.
The 2
okay.
on the sanctioned.
Yeah. So impunity would mean the ministers who used it to roof for the cows, nothing happened. The 2 line ministers who were dispensing iron seats to people, okay, because they were the line ministers, they were the custodians, they were not left free. They were taken to court. They slept in Luzira. So the idea of impunity, they should have waited for the exhaustion of the judicial process. Then you say there is impunity. Impunity means wrongs happen, nothing is done to the wrong. But things were done in courts of law.
Yeah, but after how long? 2, the indicted ministers kept serving in cabinet until the other day. How do you take plea in court on criminal charges and sit in cabinet
then return back to cabinet?
That's
the law only provides in civil service. In civil service, these are political leaders. Civil service, the law is clear. Once charged, it is an automatic interdiction, and you are reduced to half-pay salary. And that law is clear for civil servants. But that law is not there for the politicians. So you want us to act out of the law? No.
Thank you, Major.
No, one clarification, 1 minute. During Chogam, when ministers were charged in anti-corruption court, they were told to step aside before they took plea.
By who?
By the president. But because now the president
because he was waiting for the
direction.
Queen, yes.
Honorable, the Vice President, Gilbert Bukenya, Honorable Sam Kutesa, and others were told to step down a week before they took plea. So there is a precedent.
No, I will address my mind to that later.
Thank you, Major. And as Director External Affairs, is there anything you plan to do to see that our officials are safe again?
Yes, we have a lot to do about our officials. One, we want to do internally to ensure that our officials act competently and professionally and without corruption. That is the clear medicine. 2, we shall engage our external partners, our development partners, to give us chance so that we handle our matters internally. And any matters that affect their laws, like the Global Anti-Corruption Act in England, we should really handle it at diplomatic level. We have a lot to do, and we are engaging.
Thank you so much, and we hope that yields into positive results. Major Awich, thank you so much for joining us on the show and really for sharing those views. Honorable Othieno Joseph, thank you so much for sparing time to be here and sharing with us the views you had today. And Dr. Bireete Sarah, thank you so much for sparing time and giving us those amazing views you had for us today. And Dr. Ojambo Robert, thank you so much for having time for us and sharing the views. And to you, our viewers, thank you so much for keeping it Civic Space TV and in particular the Citizens Chat Show. Remember, we are powered by the Center for Constitutional Governance, and we continue to say thank you so much for the work you do out there. Special thanks to the people behind the machines. We appreciate the work to do to make sure this is put out there, and we say good evening and may you have freedom always.